My first draft, 100% writer, 0% editor.
John, we'd love to hear your process about how you write books. Can you talk about the writing process, how you start?
Sure. Here's how I start writing a book. I take myself by surprise. I wake up one day and start working on that book. I may have been thinking about it for a while. Today's the day I'm going to get into it. The next thing I do is drop all expectations. The book will be what the book is. My job right now is to get the words out on the page as quickly as possible. I go into writer mode and I stay out of editor mode, which means I'm going to write the whole entire book as it comes out of my brain, as it comes out of my fingers, doing my best not to go back and try to fix all of the obvious mistakes I'm making along the way. I separate writing from editing. The first part of the job is to write the first draft. 100% writing, 0% editing. Once I've written that first draft, then I'll go back and start casting a critical eye on my choices. See if I'm satisfied with them, whether I want to make changes, and if I make changes, what other kinds of changes that will create. And I'll go through the entire manuscript again in, let's call it a hybrid, half writer, half editor. Because the editor is saying, when you wrote this, you knew it didn't work, and now you're looking at it and sure doesn't work, you're going to have to fix it, and now's the time. So then I put on my writer hat and fix the problem. Go through the whole draft again. Again, zero expectations. I'm not trying to make it pretty. I'm not trying to make it perfect. I'm just trying to do the best I can with the material at the stage of development that it's at and trying to move it down the line, trying to advance it from where it is to where I want it to be. At each stage of my development, I'm mindful of something called platform thinking, which says that every draft is merely a level of development that I stand on to reach the next level of development. This gives me the freedom to write that first draft blindly and without worrying about quality control, because that draft in particular, I know it's going to be a huge mess. I don't care if it's a huge mess. All it has to do is be enough of a mess that I can stand on it and reach the next level, which is to go back and start making it less of a mess. So my first draft, 100% writer, 0% editor. My second draft, and let's say second, third, and fourth drafts, some blend of writer and editor. Then my last draft, second to last draft, will be an editor pass. That is to say, I'll read it as if I were an editor. Does this make sense? Is it self-indulgence? This is the part of the process that I call squeezing out the stupid, which is I take out all the stuff that I left in there just because I love it but doesn't really belong in the story. And this can reduce content quite a lot. I'm a ferocious editor. I work hard to make my books lean and clean and not self-indulgent. Note, not while I'm writing, but while I'm editing. While I'm writing, anything goes. And while I'm writing it, I'll write it, this is BS. I know this is BS. This is never going to make it into the final version. I know, but let's just see where it goes. It's going to reveal something interesting. Then the final pass I make is a copy editor pass. I'll proofread it and look at it from a proofreader's point of view. Being the person I am, I will also do the cover design, do the production, do the marketing, do the promotion. I'm a cottage industry. I do it all. For most writers, as they like to think about it, they think their job is done when the copy editing is done, when the manuscript is complete and you can't stand to do anything else with it. That's when another kind of work begins. And that's the work of, promoting it. Winston Churchill said, I won't get this quote right, but he said something, writing a book is an adventure. At first it is a plaything and a toy, and then it becomes a mistress, then it becomes a master, eventually it becomes a monster, and finally when you feel it must vanquish you, you kill the beast and fling it to the public. And that is Winston Churchill's very succinct understanding of writing a book. If I look at my process, I think it's kind of the same thing. I enter every book underestimating how much it's going to cost me in terms of time and hard work. So that's the plaything part. I fall in love with it. I get on a creative rush, and whoa, this is a crazy thrill ride I'm on. That's when it's a mistress. Then I hit story problems I can't solve, and I have to stay with those story problems till I solve them. That's when the thing is a master. Then it becomes, God, I've had this thing on my desktop. I can't remember when I worked on anything else. I'm dying for something new. Just labor through the editing, make it as good as you can, do the steps, do the copy editing. You get to go back to another plaything eventually, but right now your job as a professional is to do the professional parts of your job. and then ultimately just, okay, kill the beast and fling it to the public. Hope somebody finds their way to it. If they do, great. If they don't, oh well. You know, I have a friend who's a heart surgeon, and he says the only part of his job he likes is cutting people open. Everything else is just what he puts up with to do the part of the job he loves. And I can relate to that. You know, he's seeing patients, he's doing office work, dealing with insurance. That's me with marketing. I hate marketing like a cat hates baths. I actually don't have to do it anymore, because if the books find their audience, great. If they don't find their audience, it's not going to make that much of a difference to me in my life. But if I were a young writer, and when I was a young writer, I paid a lot of attention to marketing, because how else are you going to grow your brand? Especially in this day and age when there's so many competing brands out there. You know what I do? I try to make marketing part of my practice. I try to find ways to make marketing itself a fun and creative exercise. I'll give you an example. When I was promoting the book of practice, I composed images to go with quotes from the book. And then I posted those with a link to the book. The images weren't in the book, they were new. It was my bait. Like I was saying to myself, well, if I have a half an hour of fun creating this image and building a piece of promo around it and doing the promo, then I will feel like I did the promo without it being so painful. I sugar-coated the part of the job I don't like with the part of the job I do like. Let's ask ourselves, you watching at home, how can you sugarcoat the part of the job you don't like with the parts of the job that you do like?
It sounds like you're great at compartmentalizing your mind, so you can get in writer mode and you refuse to be in editor mode while you're in writer mode, getting the book out. Then you know, okay, I'm this taskmaster, I'm the editor now, and then you can do the hybrid. And it sounds like you're really good at putting on these proverbial hats and going with what the hat is.
And I feel that that is a gift. A trick of my mind is that I can do two things at once, and those two things are take an action and observe myself taking the action. I'm good at analyzing myself. So that's the part that's gift, but also there's a relentless practice of self-awareness. I'm constantly trying to know myself better, not for spiritual reasons, but for practical reasons. Because what is self-awareness but awareness of the self? So if I've had the experience in the past, which I've had many times, of trying to write and edit at the same time and seeing that it doesn't work, it's not efficient, then I can remind myself in the moment, it looks like you're editing when you should be writing. Try not to edit. Then if I can layer in some acceptance, you're not a bad person because you were editing when you should be writing. That's your process. And you're trying to improve your process, so be aware of your process and try to implement improvements. Like try to write more and edit less, and recognize that the time will come to edit later. This quality of compartmentalization you talk about, it's a quirk of my mind, but it's also a tool that I use. And so for everyone, one could say, you have the capacity to look at your actions and make judgments about those actions. It's hard to make those actions when the judgments come with negative noise. That is to say, when you're judging yourself versus evaluating the work. When you can say to yourself, today I was 75% writing and 25% editing. Or I'll give you a better example. Today I was 50% writing and 50% fear. That's a lousy percentage. I wish it were 75% writing and 25% fear. If I say to myself I'm a bad writer because I didn't do a better job, I'm lost. If I say to myself I did the best I did today, I'm going to try and do better tomorrow, then I'm demonstrating self-awareness and self-acceptance. And to me, that's the key to everything. Those two things in tandem. With self-awareness and self-acceptance, great practice of anything is possible.
Do you believe that we're antennas during the writing process?
Do I believe that we are antennas during the writing process?
Right, that we're receiving creative input?
Yes, I do. Here's why. Eastern philosophy describes creativity as carrying buckets to the river. What's implied is that there is a stream of information passing by. Life experience, art, the unknown, spirituality, whatever your antenna might pick up. It's all there. And all we need to do to access it is jump in the stream. So to me, if I'm having art or having writing and I feel inspired, again, remembering inspire means to breathe in, I'm breathing in information from outside. It might be information that I brought in from outside years ago, and is now stored in my head. It might be something that I'm just thinking about in the moment, which is I'm bringing in information from outer reality, from different parts of reality. With that said, I can acquire more information more effectively. I can do things to the river. I can dam the river. I can throw in irrigation pipes. I can use creativity strategically and with toolcraft. But what lies at the heart of the creative act is inspiration. There is something that inspires us to pick up a blue brush versus a yellow brush, to paint a doghouse versus a human house, to write an opera versus an operetta, to dance versus gymnastics. And that guiding light, that infusing spirit, is what I think of when you speak of the antenna. I have another thing that I'd like to layer on this, and this is a really deep cut. We spend our lives trying to get to the bottom of the question, what is God? And we struggle with it for manifest reasons. It's been suggested that humans trying to understand God is like a fish trying to understand the ocean. You are within the thing you're trying to understand. It makes it very, very hard to understand it. But as I dig a little bit deeper into it, I think that there are a lot of things that we use as explanations for that which can't be explained. God, superstition, alchemy, astrology, necromancy, witchcraft, magical creatures, supernatural, yogic flying, past life regression. The list goes on and on. There are a lot of things we look at and say, that thing there is an attempt to explain the thing behind it. And my sense is none of these things can ever give us more than the merest glimpse of the unknown. Because the thing that we're trying to understand, it is minimally above us, below us, beside us, within us, and without us, and all around us. But even more than that, it's in us and among us and around us in ways we can never know, because it is in us and among us and around us, and we are within it. So we are within a greater reality that we can't understand for the simple reason that we are within that greater reality. And all of our attempts to assign the number of parallel universes, or name the 8 billion names of God, or write and then believe in a book that explains the way the world works, whether that book is How to Live Life or the Book of Practice or the Bible, all of these things are merely unfulfilling attempts to know that which can never be known. And so I try to sit comfortably in the space of all of these efforts are simply efforts to explore, not to learn everything, but to broaden the boundaries to create more space within what I know and less space outside of what I know. A great example of this can be seen in the photos that are being sent back from Mars, believe it or not. If you asked somebody 200 years ago, let's say 5,000 years ago, what do you know about Mars? Mars is the god of war. Maybe that's 3,000 years ago. What do you know about gods? That thing in the sky, that's a god. That's the best I can do with the information I have available to me. It's up there, I'm down here, it seems more powerful than I am, must be a god. 500 years ago, if you ask what's Mars, if this is after the invention of the telescope, Kepler's work, that's a planet, it's out there. My reality is here. Before, my reality was only here, and God was up there, Mars, the god of war. Now my reality is a little bit bigger. There's this reality here, and these pinpoints of light that define the outer boundary of my reality. The world we're living in now, our visual apprehension of outer reality is streaming away from us faster than we can comprehend. We can create a visual understanding of the surface of Mars now, which our parents couldn't do and our grandparents couldn't dream of. So our sphere of reality now extends well beyond the Earth to Mars and beyond. And if you're absorbing photos of galaxies, distant galaxies from the Hubble Space Telescope or the Webb telescope, you're getting an even bigger picture of reality. Not that you can understand any of it, because how can you understand infinity? And how can you time eternity? You can't. You can't do these things. All you can do is keep pushing outward in all directions, and take satisfaction in growing your understanding to the best of your ability, rather than suffering because you don't know God.
Or we're in a giant simulator, and it seems like we're experiencing this.
Which is a great way of, if I want to experience flight, but I'm afraid of flying, I can get in a flight simulator and experience flight and add the feeling of flight to things that are known to me. This goes back to the challenge we were talking about before. How are you a writer in today's world when the job of a book is to give people a simulated experience? And you're asking them to do the job as partners by using their imagination to read your words and turn them into pictures. You're asking them to do that. If you asked them to do that 200 years ago, they would say, yes, please, because this is the only way I can interpret. I can imagine. I can inhabit an imagined reality. But now it's competing against countless imagined realities. Books, movies, TV, virtual reality, augmented reality. And we haven't even talked about AI and what versions of reality and ear reality that device will create. So it's hard out here for a writer. Yeah.